Clay, this episode was going well, going fine, doing everything that I would expect a Star Trek Enterprise episode called Carpenter Street to do. Mm-hmm. And then someone's like, hey, it's October 2004. And I sat there flabbergasted. I said, why is no one talking about the breaking of the Curse of the Bambino at this time, especially in Detroit, baseball city? No one's talking about this? Garbage episode, 1 out of 5, and that's the podcast.
Well, Detroit, the Tigers, they're not going to be following. I mean, you're right, though. It is a worldwide story. But I would rather talk.
It was the hearts and minds of everybody. It washed away the stain of 9/11.
Yeah. If you want to talk about that, I'm fine talking about that. Because, I wanted to mention, you've got 3 kids now, right?
Yes.
You got a little one.
That I know of. Yeah.
You got a full-time job. I have a demanding career of smearing ink on a page every day. What I'm getting at is I feel like our time is valuable, and this episode was just a waste of fucking time. And if you want to just jump to the patron stuff and just go through that, I'm fine. I don't even really want to talk about this episode. So,
well, we have a lot of patron comments from Kid Rock, Eminem, and every member of Kiss that we need to get through.
Finally.
So.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of people chiming in about finally Detroit gets representation in Star Trek. So
with one white guy who encompasses Detroit, which is very fascinating. We're going to break down Carpenter Street. So we're going to take a break. We'll play a clip from the episode. We'll have brief thoughts of our own, and then we'll go to the patrons after that.
You said I'm supposed to play some crucial part in history. Does this have something to do with it?
I wish I could say that it does, but I don't know. I told you, none of this was supposed to happen.
You're not being very helpful. Why are you here?
We've detected 3 Xindi where they're not supposed to be.
This expanse is filled with Xindi.
I'm not talking about the Expanse. I'm talking about Detroit, Michigan, 150 years ago.
Carpenter Street is the 11th episode of the 3rd season, aired on November 26, 2003. I guess that makes sense. They couldn't predict the World Series at that point. That's why it all comes together. So why did they go to 2004? Anyway, it is 9 out of 13 in the temporal.
They went back in time from the future to a point in the future that they couldn't predict because it was too close to when they actually made the episode. Perfect sense.
What a strange... Anyway, it is 9 out of 13 of the temporal Cold War arc because Daniels is in this episode. It is 12 out of 28 in the Xindi Crisis arc because we're in the middle of the 3rd season of Star Trek Enterprise. Written by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga. Directed by Mike Vehar. In-universe date. It's specifically not known in 2153, but it's October of 2004. The Red Sox are about to win the World Series. In this episode...
I'm currently skipping class to watch the Red Sox come back and beat the Yankees from being down 3-1, and then
then we had they were
AMC. What the fuck is baseball? I haven't watched baseball in forever. With the ALC, ALC championship.
Yeah. So they were down to the Yankees 3-0, right?
Oh, 3-0. That's right.
I think it was 3-0, and they came back. They won it 4-3, and then we had a very satisfying sweep against the Cardinals. I think it was the Cardinals.
I believe so. Yeah.
Anyway. In this episode, Archer and T'Pol travel back in time to stop the Xindi-Reptilians in 21st century Detroit. Carpenter Street. What a dumb episode of Star Trek.
What is happening? What is going on?
You sounded negative on this one in the opening. What do you want to start this? Do you want to explain what's going on?
I don't know. It's not a travesty of narrative or it's just, I don't know why are we doing, why are they doing this? It's perfectly fine down the middle, boring Enterprise episode in the middle of a season-long story that they just bail out of so they can save money to do this in Detroit in 2004, I guess. I don't know. Like, what? I don't understand the point of any of this. Yeah. It's just, and on top of that, why are there so many John Carpenter references in this episode? It's not like it's based on, it's not like it's sending up The Thing or They Live, or it's Detroit.
What's a John Carpenter reference in it?
It's called Carpenter Street.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Loomis. There's a guy named Lawrence Strode, like Laurie Strode.
Okay.
And there's another person named Myers. It's a bunch of Halloween references.
I don't know. I don't know what that is.
What? Why? It's not a horror episode. It's not like I don't know. Like, what the hell's going on? The end of this episode, I've thought that was perfectly fine. It was a waste of my time.
Yeah, it just says here there are many references to horror film Halloween. The title street name is a reference to Carpenter. Loomis is Dr. Sam Loomis. Lawrence Strode is a reference to Laurie Strode. Loomis talks about Mr. Myers, a reference to Michael Myers. Loomis drives an old station wagon, much like the one Myers drives in the film Halloween. I don't know. They don't explain what the references are.
The opening thing, it's like, oh, it's 2004. Why is he driving a station wagon from 1975? I just don't know what's going on. Berman made sure they got he made me fuck her guy back for this. So that's always good. But like, I just don't understand what's going on. Why are they doing this? What does this? Can you at least tell me that this biological weapon comes back in some form later on?
Well, I mean, this is what they've been talking about for a few episodes. Since Regine, which Regine gets her gets her shout out in this one because Archer's like, "Hey, this reminds me of that other episode."
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
It's the biological weapon that they're working on. That's like a secondary weapon to their main weapon, I guess. I don't understand why this plot line exists in general.
Great payoff
because
for that story.
They already have a weapon that they're working on. So this is just confusingly unnecessary. This is probably the worst time travel Star Trek episode I've ever seen.
It's pretty bad. Like even when Daniel shows up, he's like, Archer's like, wait a minute, if they went back in time to do this, how come it hasn't affected you? And he's like, well, it hasn't reached us yet.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Well,
I guess
this is again, I mentioned at the start, this is the temporal Cold War just because Daniels is in it. I could have swore Archer thought Daniels was dead at the end of the last time he had seen him, but I guess not, because he's not surprised when he shows up. He's like, I was expecting you to come.
Well, I thought that too, but then I thought it was like it's Daniels's interaction is not linear, but honestly, that wouldn't make a ton of sense in this situation.
Yeah. Well, here's my...
he would have to be linear for any of this to really track, I think. I don't know.
I think the Daniels stuff is pretty exemplary of Enterprise problems, right? Like, he exists in this episode just as a way for this plot to happen. There's not really a Cold War time reference here. The show, it's just such a lazy show. Down to the fact that like the Xindi are going into the past, right? And they talk about mysterious future guy. And Daniels knows nothing. He's like useless. He doesn't know anything about what's going on.
That was my favorite part when Archer's like, what about the shadowy future guy that the Suliban were led by? He told us this was going to happen. What do you know about that? And Daniel's like, I don't know what to tell you.
It's incredibly frustrating. And also, Daniels is written so poorly for what his conception is. Archer's like, there is Xindi in the past, and Daniels goes, they've been there for 2 months. What the fuck does that mean? How does Daniels have any... How does he straight face say they've been there for 2 months when time means nothing to him?
Right.
What does that mean? Like, just go send him back to before
2 months earlier.
Does Xindi get there? Then Daniels wouldn't have anything to say like that. Like, the Daniels character needs to be this annoying. I know it's annoying, but he has to be that kind of time travel character who, when Archer says, "Can we stop it?" Daniels is the kind of character who always says things like, "It's already happened." You know, like there's a Daniels is so into, he can't be this like moron of a temporal agent. He has to be deeply invested in the time travel aspect where he's not really shaken by anything, and he speaks in riddles because time is just like, he's beyond time in some ways. And he doesn't do any of that. He's just this moron who shows up, and Archer asks him a question. He's like, you got to go back and you got to stop the Xindi. I can't tell you anything about this for plot reasons. So just go and do that, and then we'll fill in the blanks maybe later on. I don't know anything about why this is happening. Can't tell you anything. They've been there for months, even though time means nothing to me. It's just such a lazy character, such a lazy, stupid writing.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually did like the cold open.
Yeah,
because you're not expecting to see a Xindi in
talking on a cell phone.
Yeah. In 21st century Detroit. I don't know why that guy keeps his pizza in the bathroom.
In the bathroom. Yeah.
Interesting choice. But yeah, I thought that was a fairly effective cold open to be like, oh, wait, why is Xindi on Earth in modern times?
I like the way everything looks on Earth in Detroit. I kind of like the look of it. It's very dark and very depressing, but it's kind of neat. I thought the camera, like the direction and stuff was strong. And then
there was... Sorry, speaking of the camera and direction, did you notice the scene when they're interrogating Leland Orser there? It turns into an episode of The Shield for a second, where like they start going handheld and they do like a zoom in, like whilst T'Pol walks over and grabs something and they back out. It was really strange. I don't have a problem with it. I just know they don't usually do. They don't do it. Enterprise.
Yeah, I think they're trying to separate the timeline type stuff, but I don't know if I don't have anything else to say about Daniels in the Temporal Cold War. I don't know if you have anything off of that, but he's so exemplary of what the show does badly. And Berman and Braga are just like, they seem to be the key writers in these things where it's just like, did no one think about this? Like, what are you talking about? Why are they going into the past? And why is Daniels here to deliver this? And why is going into the past, you go into a room on the ship and Trip just watches you go in?
It's the command center. It's not even like I thought at first. I thought they were going into Daniels's bunk or something, which I don't know what happened to that. Maybe they cleaned it out when they did the retrofit, but or the refit or whatever they call it. But yeah, he's like, meet me in the command center in an hour. And then he walks out and it's full of Christmas toys.
The other thing, and feel free to chime in, whatever, the Xindi, this is a time travel episode that has so little to say about why they're time traveling that it actively undermines what the Xindi are capable of doing, or it brings up questions about what the Xindi are doing. There's just so many. Why did the Xindi choose this time to go back to? Why did they choose 2004 instead of...
Because it was cheaper.
Right, instead of 800 AD, where no one will understand what the hell is going on and they can collect all the stuff. Why did they have to go in?
I'll tell you why. They couldn't go back to 800 AD because they needed someone who understood blood typing.
Right. Yeah, well, right, to capture
because
them.
They don't understand how to do blood typing. They can travel into the past, but they don't understand how to do blood typing.
Why are they doing...
Even though the machine they've built is based around the concept of human blood types, they can't actually do that themselves.
They can't scan this stuff. They have to do the blood work. Why, if they can go back in time, go back and do the Simpsons joke of you step on the bug that crawls out of the water and you stop humanity from sprouting. Why do you do this complicated? There's no rationale for why they go back to this time. It's just such a poorly, weirdly conceived thing. And if they can go back in time, Earth is just more fucked. It's too powerful of an ability to be able to go back in time.
When did the Xindi get time travel?
Right. I guess they got it from Future Guy, but no one seems to be able to confirm that.
I mean...
But Future Guy's not helping them, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where they got time travel from.
Yeah, it adds another, like, impossible to deal with, overly powered layer to something that was kind of already, vague to begin with.
Right.
It's a really weird choice.
Do you think they accomplished anything with the time travel here?
No. It's
Did you get some comedy out of the time travel with ordering hamburgers in the 21st century?
Actually, the scene that I did like was when they first got there, and even though they had just been transported 90 million light years or whatever and 150 years into the past, T'Pol still doesn't believe it's time travel. I liked her being a dick about it still, even though. But yeah, like,
why did he take to Paul? Why did he bring an alien into the instead of Trip or Reed or something?
Yeah, I don't know. It honestly, this feels like fan fiction to me.
Yeah.
From the let's take a detour to go back to Earth in the 2000s to the fact that they're doing this weird, purposeless John Carpenter thing. It just feels like fan fiction. It feels like something you'd find on an Enterprise message board or something.
Yeah. It's an episode that's full.
What if Xindi had time travel? Ooh, I'm gonna write that.
We'll get into. I think there's deeper levels of weirdness to it, like more overarching things. But it's one of these bad episodes where you're watching it and everything just seems so ridiculous as you're watching it. Like the Loomis, they hire this guy to take blood, to kidnap people, to like assault them and kidnap them, and then drain their blood over in this warehouse. And the Xindi come out and give orders to him, and he's like, I can't see their face. They're just in the shadows. They're wearing fucking shiny purple spacesuits. Talking to him. It's not like they're talking only on the phone or over a loudspeaker.
Well, to be fair, he did say that was the first time he had actually saw him.
But he doesn't describe it. Archer's like, what did he look like? He's like,
right,
I don't know.
He doesn't describe
I don't know what he didn't. There was nothing distinguishing about him whatsoever, except for his shiny purple spacesuit that he wears.
Yeah. I was kind of wondering that too.
It's just so. But then Loomis has a line later where he knows exactly what the Xindi do when he's not around for some reason. Like he's like, they come down every 6 hours, they change their stitches and they give them stuff. It's like, how the fuck do you know? You said you never saw them. How do you know all this?
Well, they left the instruction manual out and he was flipping through it while he was having a smoke, I guess.
How about you pull us into something more cohesive to complain about with this episode, which I think is very bad. But so Enterprise is smack dab in the middle of this season, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with this Xindi arc?
I don't know. This is like the point in that story where something serious should be happening around this point. You know, you're at the halfway point of the story, if you want to call it a singular story. Something's got to happen. Something has to move forward. There has to be more stakes or something, or
learn about the Xindi, perhaps. You know,
what's that?
Learn about the Xindi in some way. We still don't know much about them, but you would expect escalation at this point. And
I guess the only escalation, unless they're dead, they've got like 4 of them now, right?
Yeah, they captured them. I think I think they're alive, so they'll obviously use them for some kind of information thing. But that's a long way to go for a ham sandwich. Is this entire journey just to get those Xindi guys?
Correct.
I think that, and I think that there's a comment here. Jakey's Gamer says, I feel like they introduced the concept of the second weapon just as a way to pad stories. It was kind of fun to see Daniels again. I guess DePaul can't deny time travel anymore. Other than that, there isn't a lot going on for this one. 2 double super beefs without lettuce out of 5, but for 40 cents extra, I can make it a 4. So the second weapon. That's
the only thing they have to say with their time travel isn't the value menu at McDonald's a fucking heart attack or something? You know?
It's come a long way. The second weapon of the Xindi is, as Jason says here, I see no reason for this to be the case except for they have to pad this somehow, and they can't. But I don't understand because they haven't exhausted the option of telling you about the main weapon. They haven't told us anything about the main weapon. So why do we need to pad this out with a secondary Xindi thing where they have a biological weapon that so specifically they need the blood types of people? It's not like coronavirus or something, or like Ebola cares about our blood types. It's like you just infect us and you die from it.
And also, wasn't the point of what Regin did to already get all this information? Like she did, right?
She scanned Archer and got human DNA information, which is apparently useless now because they need specific blood types.
Well, I don't know. It's first of all, that episode was way too far in the past for any of that to really track and And I mean, we've been watching these consistently. And
Yep.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm known for remembering this stuff, but like if you were watching this week to week, that's just in one ear out the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a really weird side quest. And it's not even a side quest that, like, you know, they end up on a planet where they're going to try and test it out. They time travel back to Earth. It's just a really weird attempt to raise the stakes for this biological weapon, but it's somehow less relatable than if they had used like some planet in the Expanse to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
there's just nothing going back in time at this point with no purpose other than to stop this random thing from happening. Really undercuts any of the tension of it, because time travel stories usually aren't just about the thing that you're going back to do, you know?
Yeah.
And this one is explicitly just about that.
Well, I would agree with you. I'll say that the other thing that the show tries to do, which is obnoxious and ties into the weakness of what Enterprise is at its core, is that the runner that Archer and T'Pol have is that T'Pol is appalled by how humans are acting in the 21st century, where they're eating meat, they're punching each other when they need to find out information. It's a lot of moralizing about stuff. And my understanding of the setup of Enterprise is that they're not that far removed from Earth at this point. So going back in time for Enterprise to present day is the least impactful time travel that Star Trek shows can do, really, because it's the least amount of jump into a distant past that is not all that distant. T'Pol might have been alive during this period of time in Earth history. It's just, I really hate that moralizing, and it stuck out again. It stuck out in something like North Star, the Western episode that we watched, where at the end, Archer's lecturing this guy about, we don't have bigotry anymore. It's like the whole point of the show is that you're a prequel who you're supposed to suffer from these things. Like, what is Enterprise if you're not going to embrace that idea? And to have it here just be like that neutral zone episode of TNG where the characters are just like laughing at the characters from the 20th century who are like, we don't have money, dickhead. How dare you come into our world and tell us like things that need to happen. It's like, what's stupid moralizing about nothing? And I don't know. And also, it's a 9/11 allegory, pretty explicitly, this story, that their only way they touch upon it is the guy goes, I thought they might be terrorists.
Right.
The guy, Loomis, thinks that the Xindi are terrorists. It's like, that's the depth of your take on this. There's no allegory.
I saw the shiny purple suits and I immediately went, Afghanistan.
If I know
These
shiny
are the guys
purple.
that hijacked the planes.
How do you, the show is so scared of saying anything. It doesn't say anything ever about the topic that it's talking about. Like, and maybe you could say it would be too, it's too explicit. Archer goes back in time and is appalled by how modern Americans are talking about Islamic terrorism. And he's like, oh, this is how I feel about the Xindi. Like, that's a terrible thing. They don't do anything. They don't touch anything with any kind of point. It's just Archer running around with a phaser in 2004, spying on Xindi, who are building a bat signal to send a virus into the air.
Yeah. I have to assume this episode is just a money saver because they could shoot it on a backlot somewhere, and you know, there's 4 people in the whole thing.
Right.
Although I mean, they did do a lot of exterior shots with cars and shit, so maybe it wasn't as cheap as I think it is. But even if that's the case, that doesn't mean it can't be about anything. You know, if anything, it should make you
be
work
the priority
to make sure that it should be the priority to make it worth doing instead of whatever this is. Even though it has Jeffrey Dean Morgan in it
as one of the Xindi.
Yeah, which I forget where I saw it. It might have been on the Discord. Somebody just recently posted a quote from him saying that being on Star Trek almost because of the makeup almost caused him to stop acting.
Yeah, he's claustrophobic and he hated the makeup, I guess, and considered quitting. It was an early role for him, so he just took it as a thing to do, but freaked out quite frequently because of the makeup, which does look pretty claustrophobic. He's not doing anything in this. He's just one of the generic Xindi is him. I couldn't tell you if it's the last Xindi standing at the end who knocks over the vial and Archer goes, no, and just grabs it before it rolls over the thing. Terrible sequence.
The Nicolas Cage and The Rock shot of him diving over to grab the VX gas before it breaks.
Not as intense as that.
Also the plan. He was just gonna dump it into like a
fan,
a venting fan,
a vent fan.
What's the? I don't know, man. I mean, I guess when your back's against the wall, you got to do something.
Yeah,
that's the best you could do. But
no, it's like the vent fan of a pizzeria or something.
Yeah,
he was about to. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's. I don't know what to say about this episode because it's just like I said, it's just a waste of time.
It is a waste of time. I mean, I would agree with you that if you think this episode is supposed to be saving money, this is the wrong approach to that. I think that the way you maybe save, like the way fundamentally, I think that the show at this point has not done anything to explain the Xindi in any kind of way. And so their plots always just seem like they're random plot of the week type stuff that we're getting sucked into. Mm-hmm. And if you just spent an episode with the Xindi, or you spent an episode just with Archer talking about the Xindi or something, like in his ready room, I feel like you accomplish more than this, really. Going back in time needs to be about something. And this one is just so empty and devoid of what that means, to the point where the Xindi going back in time only raises problems for the storyline in the future about like, what can the Xindi do at this point? It's really just a misfire on every level. I really don't have much to say about it because it doesn't have a point to it. Right. There's nothing going on really in it. It's just an empty, strange, weak episode in the middle of a Star Trek season that's tied to a serialized story that doesn't go anywhere.
And it's kind of summed up by Trip at the end, where they've only been gone for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
In Enterprise time, and it's like, oh, well, I guess that's over.
Got something to show you, Trip.
Thing. Yeah, I got some Ninja Turtle ooze here. I need Phlox to look at. Yeah, it's yeah. I just don't know what you're supposed to be doing. Like the time travel thing with the Xindi, like you're saying, we don't know anything about them, to the point where it took me a couple minutes to go, wait a minute, why do they have time travel?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a huge development if the Xindi have fucking time travel.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
failed. Archer's still there. Time travel hasn't helped the Xindi to this point, unfortunately. He hasn't reset the timeline or anything.
Yeah. It just seems like if you told me this episode was shot last because they had like one extra episode they realized they had to do on the last week of production or something, it has that feel to it. It's like, okay, how can we quickly jam one of these out? Let's just grab a bunch of crap. Xindis, sure, time travel, people love that. We can shoot it on the back lot if it takes place in 2004, so let's do that. Well, we got the car here. You know what, that reminds me of the car from Halloween. What if we name a bunch of stuff after John Carpenter stuff? That would be fun. Why does it have to do with anything? No, it'd just be fun. What the hell?
Matt Ross says, another time travel adventure in a contemporary Earth, which we just saw in Voyager's Future's End. TOS's Assignment Earth and DS9's past tense, but smaller and more boring. Why take the alien woman to a time where her discovery would change the timeline? And since the Xindi have all the bioinfo and know the best Earth ship is not really a threat, why bother? Oh, a car, they can't drive it. Hilarious. The med tech is annoying and the action quite predictable. 2 syringes out of 5.
That's the other thing, too. They give him a fucking, like, Doctor Who sonic screwdriver. where they
Yeah,
just
that was
unlock cars and shit.
take money out of ATMs.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, it's that was a really strange device. It's really just like, we need them to be able to do stuff. But Archer's light comments, he's like, people used to go to jail for stealing money. I'll take $500.
T'Pol's like, we'll give back whatever we don't use. It's like at the end of Dumb and Dumber where they give him the suitcase full of IOUs. He's like, those are better than money.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned before about why, like on a narrative, is it Ludo narrative? I think that's the term. But we're like, within the narrative, why is T'Pol going? Why bring the only alien to Earth? Like, you might as well bring Phlox or something like that if you're going to go all that way. But T'Pol is clearly there just to provide these stupid moments of fish out of water with Archer on Earth, which is much more understandable in a comedy episode, right? Like, this is a grim, dark, biological weapon in Detroit story with darkness everywhere and sucking blood out of people and kidnapping prostitutes to drain them of their vital organs and stuff like that. And T'Pol's just like, what's the deal with a Big Mac? It's like, well, why is she here? Why is she here? It's just so ill-conceived. And it's the thing about this episode and the thing about Enterprise is that Enterprise just feels like, you called it a brand show, but it just feels like it's a Star Trek show that's placeholding. And they go, Star Trek goes back in time. We should have a time travel episode. Okay. And, in Voyage Home, Spock and Kirk had a lot of funny things in the past. There was a lot of funny stuff, like Spock didn't understand anything. Maybe T'Pol should not understand it. Okay. Put that into it. Is this about anything? No, not really. And that's it.
Well, I mean, so few people remember that Voyage Home also had that main plot where they were trying to stop a genetic holocaust from happening.
That one would have killed 90%, though. This, as T'Pol says, only kills 80%, and therefore humanity will survive. Clearly, we'll survive 80% of our population being wiped out.
Cool. At least if they had taken T'Pol, at least if they had given Archer like a moment to gloat or something about the fact that time travel exists.
Yeah.
But they don't even do that. I mean, like I said, I thought it was fun that she kept being a dick about it, but like they don't even like resolve that element where she's at the end, she's like, you know what? I guess time travel does exist.
Yeah.
Here's your $1.
It's just so, T'Pol doesn't bring that up. And it's also like, lest we forget, time travel and Future Guy are what kicked off the Xindi stuff, because Future Guy warned them about what was going to happen. Like, T'Pol's being real stubborn about that.
Yeah. Their whole mission is based on time travel at this point. So
what
she's
can
really flying on faith, I guess.
Daniels can't, and she never questions, where did Daniels go? He just disappears off the ship and comes back.
Well, she never saw him.
Right.
She's
Has she ever seen him?
Yeah.
She must have seen him sometime.
I don't know. I mean, this one, so it's like, it's Archer showing up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
At her room being like, we need to go back in time. So if you could meet me in the command center, go to the wherever and find yourself some period appropriate clothes. Why do they have 21st century period appropriate clothing? Just in case?
Just in case. I was going to ask you if you thought it was appropriate 2004 clothing that they're wearing. I think it's borderline.
Yeah, I didn't really notice it that much.
His trench coat looks kind of futuristic to me, so maybe it's a 50-year in the future coat.
I don't remember what the style of that time was, even though I lived through it.
Archer has a chin strap beard.
T'Pol has frosted
bangs
tips and a poop necklace.
Archer's
low-rise
it's a little late for
jeans.
Jinkos, but they should just be wearing Jinko jeans, chasing him, and Archer's just getting tangled up in his gigantic pants. Yeah, and did they when I don't remember when they start the car and the radio plays, is that a real song or was that
I don't think so. No, it was a monster truck ad.
Oh, it was a monster truck
Sunday,
ad.
Sunday. It was one of those things.
All right, that sounds
something
good.
they didn't have to pay for.
Nick the Rat says, I really enjoyed this episode as well. Once more, another time travel. Again, post another time travel repeated. Archer has a face like he's always smelling a fart. It's true. I don't know. Carpenter Street, before we go to final thoughts, is Halloween in Detroit? Is it outside of Detroit?
No. It's Haddonfield,
Illinois or something?
I think it's Illinois.
Yeah. Why Detroit in this episode?
Why anything in this episode?
If you're going for impact, it feels like you should go to New York, where if you drop it in a pizzeria vent fan of New York, you probably have a greater kill ratio than Detroit, which is still a city, but it's not New York City.
And then they could have had like a beat the clock thing where it's like, they're going to drop this down the vent of the #1 pizza joint in New York. Yeah. Oh my God, they all say that. How are we ever going to find it?
It reminds me of one of my favorite movies that is not a good movie, but I love is Virtuosity, right? The Denzel and Russell Crowe movie. But it reminds me of the Sid one, whatever his name, Russell Crowe's character, the Sid character who records that message. That with the bomb is ticking faster. Mm-hmm. We should cover that movie. I love that movie. That's a great Russell Crowe movie.
I remember finding out about that movie and being blown away that it existed, because I don't think Denzel Washington has ever done anything like that ever before or since. In terms of
like a hard sci-fi type thing. Yeah. Almost a B movie.
Yeah. And so it's always been a bit of a curiosity. So I wouldn't mind covering that either.
Because it's early in both of their careers. I love Russell Crowe as Sid in that one. It's such like an unhinged, like really wonderful performance for him. And
before he started getting paid billions of dollars to sleepwalk his way through a bad English accent and everything.
Yeah. It's you're in my world now, Parker. It's just like a fun sci-fi good movie. It's the opposite of Carpenter Street. I think we're done talking about Carpenter Street. Do you have anything else you want to say in this section?
No.
Oh, I have one. Loomis, the main character guy. Strange choice in an episode like this that he is not a redeemable character that our characters work with. You know, he's arrested at the end, and I assume going to prison. He has been abducting people and selling their blood for a fairly small amount of money that the Xindi are giving him.
They weren't going to pay him, right?
No. Where are they getting their money from? But you know what I mean? Like, normally that character would provide just a little bit of insight into something. Right. And he's completely not redemptive. And in a way that just shows the emptiness of his story. There's not much else I can say about it, but just like, how do you not have that character either mean something or have some kind of overarching theme that matches up to the story that they're doing, or he represents Archer in some way, like he's an Archer type character. He's just a guy in this that they use to find out where the Xindi are.
Yeah.
That's it.
He leaves pizza in the bathroom.
Yeah. Dirty pizza eater.
Are you to assume that he has eaten other pieces while in the bathroom and that's just where he left it?
Yeah, I think so.
Like while he was on the toilet, he
brought the box in
and he left it on the sink.
On the sink, yeah.
So he's not washing his hands, unless he went in there. Maybe he's even eating pizza while he's shaving or something. I don't know. I mean, that's the story for me.
What is this guy's
secret behind the bathroom pizza?
I don't know. That's it. We'll close it out there. Carpenter Street. Let's play another clip. We'll come back, read some patron thoughts, the remaining patron thoughts, and then we'll give our final thoughts about Carpenter Street.
Hey, I didn't do anything.
We got a tip says you did.
You're just lucky all 6 of them are still alive. Those 2 cops that came to my place, they offered me a deal. That's the only reason I helped them.
I don't know what you're talking about. Get them out of here.
Those creatures, the lizard people, they're around here somewhere. You gotta find them.
Yeah, no problem. Get right on that.
Be careful. They got ray guns.
Yeah, ray guns. Got it. Watch your head.
Thank you very much for listening to the podcast today. If you enjoyed our coverage of Carpenter Street, you can support us on patreon.com/The Penske File. We're very close, $20 away from our Voyager fund at the time of this recording. The month start rolled around, knocked a couple people off, but we're $20 away from that goal to do every single Voyager episode. If we don't get to that goal, we'll just do a curated list. So that's what it is. Patreon.com/The Penske File. You get extra podcasts. A couple dollars a month, you get extra podcasts. You get extra polls to decide what we talk about. You get some videos that are not available to everybody else. You get to play some games on the Discord channel. Blah, blah, blah. Patreon.com/The Penske File. And as always, our Captain Tier supporters get a special thank you. Special thank you goes to Tarek Latif, Joint Mango, Kyle Barrett, Mike Burnett, Samuel Custer, Andrew Cherlog, Matt Ross, Michael Pond, Matt Cutler, Christian Pouch, Cardinal Doomsday, Nick Sergey, Rim Santo, Sean, Bradley Killens, Dwayne Hackett, Kevin Reyes, Jordan Cooper, Darth Mosk, Vault 13 Hero, Russell Elledge, HH28, Stefan Minton, Derek Zajac, Paulo Roscoe, Jake123, Poindexter G, Johnny Franceschi, Mike Harris, Captain Brazen, Eric Sanjuan, Jakey's Gamer, Kevin Lowry, Nick the Rat, Corey Martin, William Scheisler, Groppler, John Zorn, Rayhan Jaffer, Zane Majors, Dave Davies, Soylent Blue, Retail, Patrick Seba, Tom Hickey, Jose Hunters, EWNF Remixes, Captain McMunchausen, James McLennan, Mark C, Matt Houston, Jonas, Lokai, Bella, I'll get that eventually, and Olivier Pardur. Thank you very much for supporting us.
One, is the Micro Machines guy still alive? Two, can we get him to just read through those?
I know, I need to hire him on that, what is that site where you pay celebrities
Cameo?
to say Cameo? Yeah.
Cameo every month.
We were considering doing that for the podcast.
Once a week until we finish Star Trek Voyager in 3 years.
Have him rattle those off. We were considering doing it ads for the podcast, just to have Jonathan Frakes say, like, you're listening to the Penske File. It's the greatest fucking podcast I've ever heard in my life. But they apparently don't do ads, paid promotion stuff. It's part of the terms of service.
Very smart that they put
it is
in there.
Yes. Yeah.
So instead you just get Brett Favre accidentally saying how much he supports white supremacy or whatever.
This is Jonathan Frakes supporting Stormfront.com. You can get all your
Jonathan Frakes reminding you that the storm is coming.
Yeah, so we don't have Cameo, unfortunately. It's too bad. Anyway, thank you, patrons, for supporting us. Let's go to patron thoughts. We read a couple of them. We'll read some more. Rayo says, Carpenter Street, Archer finally defeats someone with his fists. If only he weren't a chair-bound prisoner who had no chance of fighting back. You get the impression that if Scott Bakula was cast as Jack Bauer, 24 would have been canceled in a matter of hours. T'Pol rants about how greedy and violent past humans are, but Loomis lives in abject poverty and is the only one being violent is Archer with his beatings, and T'Pol as she shoves a gun into Loomis's face for smoking. One of my favorite actors, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, nearly quit acting altogether because of how awful doing this episode was. We've seen many Star Trek episodes dealing with the past, but this feels the worst of them all when this was made. Watching Kirk try to drive a 1931 Cadillac V12 Fleetwood Roadster was far more entertaining than this. 0.5 out of 5.
Well, it's great to know that sometime between Enterprise and Star Trek 2009, driving cars comes back into vogue, which explains why Kirk knows how to drive that antique Corvette.
Yeah.
In that scene that I love so much.
More realistic attempt at driving here. We're out of fuel. We need gasoline.
How did he know that? Like, he looked at the thing and he said, it's a gas pump.
It's a gas pump. Yeah,
he doesn't know how the car works, but he knows that the little icon is a gas pump.
I'm surprised he didn't do the thing of the thing that I only learned when I was like 36, which is that the gas pump has an arrow on it that tells you what side the tank is on.
Right. Yes.
I would have been blown away if Archer had recognized that. He'd be like, we need to pull in on the left. The gas tank is over there. Cerulio says,
it's just a very strange scene because T'Pol's like, what is that blinking? He's like, it's a gas pump. It means we're out of fuel. And she's like, where do we get more fuel? And he's like, that's not the problem. And then they cut to them very easily getting some $300 out of an ATM.
Yeah.
Very weird episode.
It's another moral lecture of the gasoline thing. She's like, didn't humans know by now that burning fossil fuel was only going to create a greenhouse effect? And then it's like, okay, I gotcha.
And also, when Loomis abducts the prostitute there, he talks to the other one first, showing his face.
Yeah.
Abducts her friend, drives like 35 feet down the road before he pulls over and chloroforms her. This guy was going to get caught no matter what. It didn't matter if Archer showed up to feed him to the cops.
And those, he works as a blood. He's like a phlebotomist or something in his day job. Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite a mix of people going in for various blood work. I guess I was going to make a comment about that with a prostitute doing that is strange, but I guess the prostitute would be the one that you'd expect to go in for some blood work, maybe semi-regularly, but I don't know. It's a very, very put together take on it. And yeah, it's just, they hired, the Xindi hired him because he's a phlebotomist who has access to the blood bank information, and they cannot scan these people to figure it out. What a strange thing. Cerulio says there's a couple simple rules to follow when you make an episode where the crew goes back in time on Earth. There needs to be a likable character from the past that helps our heroes like Terry Garr, Sarah Silverman, Mark Twain, or the mom from Seventh Heaven. The people from the future need to get things slightly wrong, like saying their Vulcan counterpart did too much LDS or something's pretty groovy in 1996. Also, the humans should be the ones criticizing the awfulness of their ancestors, not the snooty Vulcans, because Vulcans already criticize humans in the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th centuries. It's a good point. This doesn't have any of that and is devoid of any of the fun usually found in this type of an episode. 1 out of 5. Ewan Tibbet says, I'm the Joker, baby. Latin Librarian says, I was excited when I... What's that?
Is that a reference to... I don't understand.
I don't get the reference, but it's I'm the Joker, baby.
Thank you.
Don't get
support.
Maybe it's a Carpenter reference. Latte Librarian says, I was excited when I saw Jeffrey Dean Morgan in the credits, but he wasn't utilized very well. T'Pol's references to Earth running out of oil made me laugh, since that is so far from what the world is currently worried about in terms of global energy. 2 veggies out of 5.
I'm Jonathan Frakes saying, I'm the Joker, baby, and shields up all around the southern border of the United... I can't say this.
The critic joke. Filled with green penis. This is terrible. I can't read this. It's like frozen peas. Thank you, Latte Librarian. Cardinal Doomsday says, it's to be hoped that Daniels makes a great scrambled egg because he's useless as a temporal agent. A nasty episode full of nasty characters and really bad lighting. T'Pol is unbearably self-righteous. I want to punch her lights out. I wonder if John Carpenter watched this tribute to him. 1 piece of dropped bacon out of 5.
I hope that was in quotes.
It was in quotes, yeah. It was. Point Extra G says, out of all the Star Trek Goes to Current Day episodes, this one is absolute rock bottom. Try to have some fun with the crew when you have them in a contemporary setting. Don't just do Archer is annoyed at the drive-through upsale, or T'Pol doesn't think Archer can drive a truck. Give me Terry Garr and a transforming cat, or Sarah Silverman versus Ed Begley Jr., or humpback whales, nuclear vessels, and double dumbass on you. I'll take anything besides wandering around Detroit at night. All this episode gives us is a role so bad that Jeffrey Dean Morgan nearly quit acting.
Which one was Terry Garr in?
Terry Garr.
You keep reading. I'll look it up.
Okay. She's in that Star Trek episode. You'll find it. It's in Assignment Earth, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Kyle Barrett says Carpenter Street, a weird mess of an episode which I feel should have fully committed to its 2004 setting by cutting the terrible scenes on the Enterprise altogether and just explain why Archer and T'Pol are in the past on the fly. It's so oppressively dark and grim in plot, tone, and visuals that any attempt to do any fun character out of time elements typical of these episodes fall completely flat. But when it embraces the unique atmosphere, mainly in the first act, it's an enjoyable diversion from the regular Star Trek, with a good performance by Leland Orser. However, the Xindi-Reptilians in their shiny purple suits look silly at best of times, and placing them in 2004's Detroit just makes them look even more preposterous. Considering the reactionary 9/11 storyline this season, it's also a missed opportunity to travel back to 2004 and not draw on any parallels with the actual event in 21st century human reactions, especially with the recent eugenics wars available as a stand-in event. 2 out of 5. These are all very good points that I didn't even realize, but yes, it's like...
It's after World War III or something at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the eugenics would have been... Maybe not World War III. Eugenics war was 1990s, so...
It seems like everybody's bounced back from that one pretty well.
Detroit's never looked better. Kyle brings up a lot of points that additional just strangeness. Last comment from Tom Hickey. Not saying it's great, But I love this episode. He didn't say it. He says, I enjoyed this episode. It kept my attention. There's good pacing and a touch of humor. That said, the premise of traveling through time to bribe a blood bank employee to abduct people to collect a sample from each blood type is totally bonkers. 3 out of 5. Thank you, patrons, for that and your comments. You can support the show on patreon.com/LepenskyFile. People brought up some good ideas. There are a lot of 1s out of 5 on this. They brought up some points that we didn't mention, although everyone seems to think that this is a colossal waste of time and an unfortunate Enterprise episode. Are we being too harsh on it? What are you going to give this one on a scale of 1 to 5?
This is tough because I want to give it a 1, but just based on the fact that it is a colossal waste of time, but it is it's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it production wise or anything. Like it's kind of asinine, but it doesn't not make sense. What about
the point that in the grand scheme of an arc that's spanning a series, does that make this worse? Like I think that my grading of this one depends on how important you think this serial Xindi story is, right? If you're looking at this as we usually do as a one-off Star Trek episode, it's like this is perfunctory and fine, and it's a 2. And I would agree. Like I wasn't actively watching it going like this is terrible. What is going on? But once it's over, you're like that was perfectly fine and terrible at the same time. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just arguing against why one might give it, or arguing for why you might give it a 1 instead of a 2.
Yeah, this episode is kind of like the Star Trek equivalent of hold music. When you call a service and they put you on hold.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with a 1, because like I feel like in this at this point in your, like you're saying, in this point in your larger story, you got to be doing something interesting.
Yeah,
and they're not, and they haven't, and yeah, I don't know. I think an episode like this at this point in the series and season is kind of unacceptable. So I'm gonna give it a 1 based on that.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Pretty much agree with you. I think it's a 2 out of 5 in and of itself. I'm going to give it a 1 because it's so stupid. It's like, it's a terrible time to have this episode. It's a bad episode on top of that. And altogether, it's just like, it's just treading water. And again, this is one of those things that like, if Enterprise at least tried something, if they were like trying to do something, as we mentioned, and as Kyle was saying, just about like characters at this time will have an opinion about a terrorist attack that killed a bunch of people. They should probably talk to some of those people and see how contemporary Americans were feeling at the time.
Right.
The show it's stupid. It's like, why, what do you... If you're either not going to push this Xindi arc in a satisfying way and actually expose something about the internal plot mechanics of what Enterprise is trying to do, and you're not going to talk about how it thematically ties into the plot of the Xindi by talking about how actual Americans felt at the time, I don't know what you're doing. This is just a stupid episode.
That's a huge... honestly, I wasn't even really thinking about that as I was watching it, but that's a really great point. What a huge missed opportunity to really get into the interesting character stuff of making that comparison of what happened in the future versus
and from the show's point of view, it was contemporary. They wrote this in 2003. Like 9/11 had just happened. There's no it's not like they forgot that 9/11 happened and they're like, "Oh, that would have been nice to tie that in." It's all they would have been thinking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's really shocking that they don't. If the thrust of your season is a 9/11 allegory, go back to the present after 9/11 and nobody brings it up. What the hell's the point of any of it?
Yeah, we're both going to give it a 1. I think it deserves it just for what it is, but it's a 2 on production level. But we're both going to give it a 1, I think. That's it. Thank you, patrons, for your thoughts. Thank you for supporting the show. Patreon.com/LepenskyFile. The best way to support us. Much appreciated. It's got to improve from here. It must. This has been the nadir of the season so far. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
Check out Rotten Horror Picture Show. We've got Ken Russell's The Devils, which I think should be up at this point.
Yep.
Our next episode after that is The Abominable Dr. Phibes, which is Vincent Price. Very fun. And Badass is probably back, should be back soon. I got to get one more in the can before I can start putting those out. But
sure.
We're very, very close.
Very close. All the shows are coming back. ThePenskeFile.com if you want to find them there. Otherwise, they're on all the podcast apps and everything. And they're on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. That's it.
And this month on Patreon, Amanda and I will be covering Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. So
after the final chapter, it's time to turn the page and start over. Yeah, the other Patreon stuff besides Friday the 13th, Part 5 are A Clockwork Orange, and I think that's for our sci-fi movie. And then I think it's a TOS rewatch of Omega Glory. So a TOS episode.
That's the board game where you each got
in 25 minutes. I will take over. Yeah.
Shoot. Yeah. And you shoot little balls at each other from across the thing. Yeah.
Did you? Oh, wait, no, that's
no, I'm
you talking about Crossfire?
Yeah.
Where if you lose the game, you burn in hell forever, which is my favorite.
Best commercial.
Great commercial.
Hands down. Best. I don't know if you could call that a board game. It's a board game in as much as Hungry Hungry Hippos is a board game, I guess.
Yeah, or foosball kind of. Is foosball? Yeah.
I guess. I don't really know what those are classified as, but the commercial for Crossfire was fantastic.
Did you play Omega Virus?
I never really did. They had it up at Cordy's condo. They used to play it all the time, but it was never a game that I got into. But they really enjoyed it. Yeah,
I used to love it when I was little, but I might have. I'd like to play it now just to see if it was actually as complicated as I thought. When I was younger, I was like, "Oh, this is a very in-depth game that I'm playing." But now it's probably just you move the guy around and you find the virus, and as the board shuts down, you have to find it sooner rather than later. But
just don't play it with Dave because he will fuck you.
He will cheat. Cheater. And a great voice from 25 minutes till I take over. Ha, 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 ha. All right, that's it. Carpenter Street. We're back with the next episode, which I think is called Proving Ground? Chosen Realm. Chosen Realm is the next episode. And after that, we're in the...
That's next to the Proving Ground.
Chosen Realm. Well, the Proving Ground is the episode after Chosen Realm. So there we go.
Sure.
And at that point, this is now the halfway point of the third season. Quick thoughts. Halfway point.
Halfway to what?
We'll figure it out.
I'm at. Yeah, I don't really know. They got to start doing something with this. Because the episodes that they're doing, like if the episodes they were doing were fantastic, I think I would care less.
Yeah. Like you mean as standalone Star Trek episodes? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'd care less that the overarching thing is a little bit light, but I don't really know what's going on here.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I mean, it's too much of this early focus has been just the idea that we need to find the Xindi and their weapon. And it's just been this hunt thing where it's not even sufficiently backgrounded where you can kind of ignore it. Like the Xindi are present in all of these things, but it still has never evolved past we need to find the Xindi. And Archer and them have found the Xindi in a couple episodes, but they still walk away from it going, we got to find the Xindi. Still, it's how many Xindi do we need to find before, like, I know that they're looking for the council or whatever, but boy, oh boy. The Dominion had more, the first appearance of the Dominion had more backstory about what the Dominion were all about than this 10 episodes of this season so far.
I mean, the Jem'Hadar alone.
Yeah.
Are more fleshed out and interesting than anybody in Enterprise. Because I was going to say, this is really kind of suffering from the same problem as the temporal Cold War thing was, which is it's not really defined what the end game is or what the goal is, and it suffers from a large scale version of what I think is like a death sentence for any sort of like plot. is if it comes down to main character needs to find out what's going on, that's not a story.
Yep.
And that's basically what both of these stories have been. It's like, temporal Cold War. The Enterprise needs to figure out what's going on. The Xindi, we need to figure out what's going on. That's not an interesting story. That's like a first draft story.
Yeah. That's the drive of any story, really. You know, like at its core, you need to find out what's going on. But the story actually takes place around that very easy concept of, you know.
The story comes from a more specific dive into that element. But when you stop at main character needs to figure out what's happening, then it just doesn't work.
Right. The dressing here is that Archer needs to figure out what's going on, but he also needs to figure out how he's reacting to this threat of what's going on, right? Like that's what the show thinks Archer is trying to do. Archer's sort of working towards this place of like recognizing that his bloodlust is not appropriate, really. Like he's going to have a redemption arc, basically. And that's where the story should be. And for all the reasons we talked about before, that's just not the way it's working out to this point. So that's it. Season 3 of Enterprise. We're halfway done with it at this point. Next episode's Chosen Realm.
You know what they should have done?
What's that?
They should have given Archer a gun. And very rarely do I say this. Even though, as Michael Scott said, if you want to add drama, just give somebody a gun and instantly. What's more dramatic than a gun? They should have lost their phasers or something. And Archer should have taken... Leland Orser's got a 38 on him or something, and he ends up taking that to go after the Xindi, and he actually uses a gun to kill one or two of the Xindi.
Yep.
That way, you've got him using an antiquated barbaric method to do something that's antiquated and barbaric. So he's actually going deeper into this
his
character
regression
spiral. Yeah, this anger spiral and violent spiral that they don't have the balls to actually make him do.
Right.
They just have him dancing around this, and you know, if he grits his teeth hard enough, you're going to go, "Ooh, Archer's really changed this season."
Yeah.
You know, so that way, because they don't like guns. You know, have him do something. You're in a more barbaric time. Have him do something that lines up with that, and then at least you're coming out of this with something to chew on. You know, T'Pol just watched Archer shoot.
I'd accept T'Pol's concerns about this too, where I find the hamburger ridiculous and be like, "Can you shut up? Like, we need to go find the Xindi." Archer capping a bunch of guys.
Like if you got a scene where like he pulls out the gun and T'Pol's like, "Are you really gonna stoop to this?" And he's like, "You gotta, the era we're in, you gotta do what they gotta do to get by. It's a harder time, T'Pol. You don't understand."
Yeah,
like that kind of bullshit.
The phasers haven't worked. He even has a line about the phasers didn't work on these reptilian Xindis before. Like, we gotta step it up a notch.
Yeah, give him something to do that's interesting or makes a step forward or backwards or anything. And you know, it's just it's a waste of time.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks very much.
Hopefully, this show was not a waste of time.
Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks very much for listening to Carpenter Street. We'll see you next time.